The story begins with two girls in the forest who notice something huge flying above them and are shocked by what they've just seen. The scene shifts to Japan. There are 7 young geniuses so talented that people call them high school prodigies. First is a girl whose mind is centuries ahead of her time. Her name is Ringo Ohoshi, the world's top inventor. Next is a warrior moving through battlefields without fear. She cuts through enemies like a modern samurai, Ichijo Aoi, the world's top swordswoman. Then comes a calm surgeon whose hands can defy death itself, Kanzaki Kane, the world's top doctor. Followed by a young man controlling nearly a third of global finance, Sanada Masato, the world's top businessman. An illusionist appears next, confident and dramatic. Prince Akatsuki, the world's top magician. Then comes a stealthy girl with the legacy of Sarutobi Sasuke, Sarutobi Shinobu, the world's top journalist. Finally, a young politician standing before the press, Mikagami Tsukasa, the world's youngest prime minister. A few days later, fate gathers these 7 into a single destiny. Tsukasa wakes up, wounded, in an unfamiliar wooden house. A gentle girl named Liril tends to him, relieved that he's awake. He thanks her, still confused and weak. Winona enters, relieved to see him conscious. She greets him warmly, curious about his strange clothes. Tsukasa introduces himself politely. He notices her tail, realizing it's real. Winona explains she's a Bayuma, part human, part beast, from the land of Freyjagard. Tsukasa is stunned. He mentions Japan, but the two have never heard of it. Even stranger, though they're speaking the same words, Liril insists she's using a language called Altan. Trying to make sense of it, Tsukasa asks to see the crash site. Liril recounts how a fiery metal bird fell from the sky 4 days ago, and the 7 of them were found nearby. A huge dragon flies above them. Tsukasa realizes the impossible. They've somehow arrived in another world. Later, a feast is held in Elm Village to celebrate their recovery. The mayor, Olga, welcomes them warmly, amazed they're humans from another world. Masato jokes about their confusion, while Kane and Aoi admit they've gotten used to village life after a month. But Akatsuki keeps denying reality, calling it all a dream. Children playfully scare him, calling him food. Liril scolds them gently. Curious, Liril asks if their world really has no Bayuma. Shinobu asks what that means. Liril explains Bayuma are beast folk with animal features and strength, while humans like the 7 are called Hayuma. Some Hayuma can use something called magic. Shinobu lights up in excitement, and Tsukasa calmly decides they'll research magic to understand this world. Winona brings steamed potatoes. The kids complain, but Tsukasa adds a creamy sauce he made. Everyone's amazed at the taste, a mix of tart and mellow. Tsukasa calls it mayonnaise. The villagers cheer. The mayor loves it. Winona recalls a fairy tale about 7 heroes from another world who once saved the land from an evil dragon. Suddenly Elch, Winona's son, bursts out angrily. He refuses to believe their story and scolds his mother for wasting food. He demands the outsiders leave once healed. Tsukasa remains calm and thanks Winona for her kindness, promising not to trouble them. Later, Tsukasa gathers his companions for a meeting. He outlines 3 priorities. Gather information about Freyjagard and its magic. Find a way home, and rebuild the village economy to repay their debt. In the morning, Ringo reports she's repaired and modified their phones and confirms their power source, a miniature reactor, survived the crash. B-Rabbit, her companion, adds that the crash site sits on bauxite ore. Ringo plans to produce aluminum in 3 days, but they'll need more materials. Tsukasa says they'll find help through trade. Their plans are interrupted as soldiers enter the village. Winona greets them nervously, explaining they have no food to spare. Their leader, Skeed the Great, an imperial knight, demands hospitality as payment for protection. Tsukasa steps forward, telling him to leave. Skeed mocks him, threatening punishment from the Empire. With swift motion, Aoi and Shinobu defeated the soldiers, stunning everyone. Tsukasa warns Skeed to retreat if he values his life. Furious but shaken, Skeed withdraws, vowing revenge. Later, Akatsuki ambushes Skeed on his way back. Floating in the air, he declares himself the magician who protects Elm Village. Skeed panics, realizing only elite imperial mages can levitate. Akatsuki threatens him, but spares his life in exchange for silence. Skeed flees, terrified. Back in the village, Tsukasa praises Akatsuki's performance. He then turns to the group, determined. He reminds them of their impossible situation, yet also of who they are, people who've already achieved the unthinkable. Tsukasa tells them to stay calm and take it easy. They are the 7 high school prodigies. If they give it their all, he warns, they might even change this world itself. Masato and Elch are at the trading company, hoping to sell the village's goods and earn enough to support everyone back home. Masato confronts a trading monopoly over village goods. A corrupt trader named Jacoy refuses fair terms. Masato leaves. Elch panics at the thought of losing their only market. Masato refuses to be cowed. He decides to take control and fight back for the village. He promises to crush this corrupt company in 1 week. Akatsuki performs a small stage trick for children. Playful applause fills the square. Lirol thanks them for helping the villagers and bringing joy. Tsukasa thanks the villagers' hospitality and promises to help. He mentions teaching new recipes and improving daily life. Lirol worries about dwindling supplies. Tsukasa reassures her that trade efforts are underway. Winona comes in and apologizes for Elch's outburst last night. Winona explains Elch's strict role as village treasurer. She names Jacoy as the man who controls and monopolizes trade in Dormant. Tsukasa eyes the situation like a problem to solve. Tsukasa smirks. Challenges like this only fuel Masato's ambition. Somewhere out there, he's already setting the foundation for what will soon become the Elm Trading Company. Masato gets the trading permit. The document bears the mayor's seal and a company name. Elch questions its validity. Masato reveals how he obtained it using subtle pressure and Shinobu's intel. There's only one trading company in Dormant. It's clear that something is going on behind the scenes, and Shinobu has discovered a money flow from Nutskaland to the mayor's secret account. Shinobu takes her leave. She still needs to gather more information. Masato outlines a bold plan. He will found the Elm Trading Company. Elch will learn to trade properly. A street kid named Rue begs Masato to join. She wants to learn how to make a lot of gold coins. Masato accepts her greed as motivation and adds her to the team. The new company is official. Masato meets local farmers to explain consignment trade. He offers to host their goods in the village market. He sets a modest fee and promises better returns than the monopoly. The farmers hesitate, but Masato explains that they can earn twice as much profit as what Nutskaland used to pay them. They only need to pay a 10% rental fee and agree to help Masato whenever he needs their support. The farmers agree to the terms. Elch feels uneasy. This method seems too convenient. They're getting all the stock without putting in a single coin. In the morning, the shops are lined up. Masato tells them that in business, 2 things matter above all else: trust and profit. He explains that a permit is the currency of credibility in Dormant. They acquire stock without upfront money just by having the trading permit. Elch realizes they can grow the company with no immediate financial risk. Elm Trading Company opens in the plaza. Business starts slow. Masato remains calm, drawing the crowd in with cheaper goods that offer the same quality. Customers arrive in waves, surprised by choice and price. Shinobu contacts Masato about Jacoy's plan, which turns out exactly as Masato expected. Masato then asks her to deliver supplies and Ringo's request to Elm Village, since they've earned a lot of money. Shinobu promises to deliver it at express speed. A cart arrives in Elm Village loaded with salt, sugar, and fruit. Shinobu delivers supplies at speed. Tsukasa breathes easier as the worry over the lab fades. Masato will return in 3 to 4 days, as he promised to crush the Nutskaland company. Back in Dormant, Jacoy fumes at the competition. He blames the mayor and plots a response. He underestimates Elm Trading at first, calling the venture a passing nuisance. At the market, sales skyrocket and curiosity peaks across the town, all because of the new product, mayonnaise. A merchant captain named Klaus appears, captain of the Sea Serpent fleet. He asks for the mayonnaise everyone's been talking about, and Masato, as if knowing this moment would come, has been waiting for him. He has tasted the mayonnaise and praised its flavor. Klaus hints that maritime traders are watching the new company. That signal shifts the trade balance in Masato's favor. News reaches Jacoy that the Sea Serpent sided with the newcomers. He recognizes the risk and orders a counterattack. He prepares to open his own market in the plaza the following day. A company showdown is declared. At the inn, Rue counts the coins with a smile. Elch is worried that Nutskaland will take action soon. Shinobu confirms that Nutskaland already has their plan in motion. Masato explains that Nutskaland will start buying from the village merchants and sell goods cheaper than him for a short period, without caring about profit, just to crush him. But it's already too late. Masato has already gathered every village merchant in dormant. The stage for his counterattack is set. Ringo presents the new aluminum shovels. Tsukasa inspects them and notes how light and durable they are. Farm work will be easier now, and the villagers will be happy. Ringo mentions that Masato helped gather the needed materials. Tsukasa acknowledges his unmatched talent in making money. Ringo quietly admits Masato has been a huge help to everyone. Tsukasa reminds her to rest, noticing her exhaustion. He reflects that everyone has been pushing themselves too hard. Snow begins to fall outside, signaling the harsh season ahead. Tsukasa thinks about Masato stirring up chaos in dormant. Villagers grumble at the cold as they work with freezing water. Meanwhile, Jakoi fumes in his office. He orders his men to buy every product available, no matter the cost. He boasts about his company's wealth, confident they can crush their rivals. But moments later, a subordinate bursts in with bad news. Their merchants can't find a single product to buy. Confusion turns to shock as Masato arrives with a group of traders. Masato reveals they're the merchants Jakoi once fired to cut expenses. He explains how Jakoi's greed and poor planning ruined his own network. Now, those same traders have joined the Elm Trading Company. They've already sold all their goods under a new 3-year deal. Jakoi realizes too late that he has nothing left to trade. Desperate, he tries to win them back with higher prices. But the merchants refuse, remembering how he treated them. They say they'd rather sell cheap than serve someone who sees them as numbers. They expose Jakoi's fake generosity as temporary, meant only for this trade war. Jakoi denies it, but their trust is gone. Masato tells him a business built without trust has no future. Elch watches, stunned that Masato destroyed Nutskaland in just 1 week. Masato decides not to erase the company entirely. He believes monopolies only hurt the economy long-term. Instead, he proposes cooperation to rebuild the trade system fairly. Jakoi agrees, his pride crushed. Later, Elch questions Masato's mercy. Masato explains that total victory brings more problems than gain. He admits the contracts with the merchants were empty from the start. Elch is shocked, accusing him of hypocrisy. Masato smiles and calls himself a demon lord in the world of business. Rue listens, amazed and proud to work under him. Suddenly, a rough-looking man appears, claiming Rue as his slave. He demands to take her back and sell her again. Masato calmly asks Rue what she wants. She recalls her dream of becoming a good merchant, earning money, and freeing her family. She begs him to buy her freedom. Masato agrees and pays 100 times her market value. The slaver accepts, but mocks the waste. Masato declares that Rue's courage is worth far more than the gold spent. He tells her they'll prove everyone wrong about her value. Elch protests the reckless spending, but Masato laughs it off. He says spending money for others feels better than profit. Shinobu later reports to Tsukasa about the result. The Elm Trading Company has won completely. Tsukasa praises Masato's mastery of economics, calling him a financial emperor. Shinobu shares updates on her research into this world's systems. She explains that magic here relies on 4 elemental spirits. Few people can use it, and only one mage serves in Findolf's castle. World crossing or summoning magic remains a mystery. Tsukasa decides they must keep searching for answers. Shinobu then brings up the Seven Light Faith, a destroyed religion. It once spread across the continent before being erased by the Freyjagard Empire. The empire banned all gods under its survival of the fittest rule. Tsukasa sees it as total religious suppression. They realize that none of the local villages remember faith or records. He resolves to find a clue, even if they must search the entire continent. But Shinobu warns travel is restricted. Leaving Findolf's territory requires a permit from its corrupt marquis. Aoi and B-Rabbit interrupt, revealing their new project is complete. They proudly present public facilities made under Tsukasa's plan. In the newly built bathhouse glowing with steam, they enjoy warm water for the first time, laughter echoing. Even Ringo joins despite her shyness. Leroy brings salve for Tsukasa's injured hand, showing gentle care. The moment feels like peaceful progress after struggle. Then chaos strikes. Akatsuki rushes in with urgent news. Hunters have encountered a deadly monster. They quickly rush to the scene. Ringo detects massive heat ahead in the forest. Masato and Elch arrive at the village, but Elch can feel that something is off. Aoi arrives just in time. She manages to knock the monster off the cliff. The monster survives the fall, and Aoi readies herself for the next round. The fight is intense. The monster attacks like crazy, but Aoi dodges every move. After seeing enough of the monster's strength, Aoi takes it down with a single strike. The survivor tells them that the village chief has stopped breathing. Tsukasa orders Kane to check his condition. Kane begins emergency surgery on the spot. After analyzing all the injuries, Kane quickly treats the wounds and starts pumping his heart. The village chief starts breathing again. The surgery is a success. She finishes, declaring the mayor will recover in a few days. Winona weeps in relief. Tsukasa thanks the group, proud of their teamwork. At the village, armored soldiers arrive. A knight steps forward, the Silver Knight Inzaghi, captain of the Guardian Knights. Elch's face tightens in fear. Inzaghi orders his men to capture the villagers. Inzaghi accuses the villagers of treason for touching imperial gold. He declares that peasants are unworthy of handling coins engraved with the empire's crest. Masato protests, but Inzaghi refuses reason. He announces Marquis Findolf's command: burn all traitors alive. Flames soon engulf the house. Tsukasa and the others arrive at the village. Winona tries to rally a rescue, but Tsukasa stops her. He reminds everyone that they still have a way to save the trapped. Akatsuki appears, along with the survivors. Elch coughs but manages to thank him. Tsukasa praises Akatsuki's quick action. Masato confirms the attackers claimed orders from the Marquis Findolf himself. Tsukasa's eyes harden at the realization as he asks a chilling question. Where is Lirol? Winona says that Lirol might have been taken hostage. The villagers erupt in anger, demanding justice. Elch insists they attack immediately. Tsukasa stops them, warning that assaulting the Lord means war with an entire nation. The crowd hesitates, fear clashing with rage, determined to avoid bloodshed. Tsukasa decides to go for negotiations, the only peaceful path, as the Lord values nothing but Lirol's life. Sacrificing her would be the only way to end the accusation of treason. The words sting, but Tsukasa stands firm. He claims even Lirol would understand this choice. Winona refuses. She declares that peace built on sacrifice would destroy their humanity. Survival alone isn't enough. What matters is helping one another and staying human, even when it hurts. Her conviction moves the crowd. Tsukasa looks at their faces and knows there's no turning back. He warns that once they begin this fight, death will follow. Corpses will pile up, and the ocean will run red. But if they are willing to endure that for dignity, he will lead them. The villagers agree. He accepts, declaring their struggle a people's revolution. Not a rebellion of anger, but a war for freedom. Masato reminds him this choice will change everything: politics, economy, values. Their knowledge will push the world forward by centuries. Tsukasa nods, ready to destroy the world as they know it to build a better one. In the Lord's mansion, Findolf admires Lirol's beauty, seeing her as another possession. His knight Inzaghi watches coldly, proud of his capture. Lirol remembers his cruel deal, her body for her village's safety. With quiet resolve, she decides her sacrifice will be her weapon. Findolf reaches for her, but light flashes. Magic bursts from Lirol, shocking the room. The Lord screams in fury. He orders her restrained, calling her a filthy commoner who dared to fight back. Outside, preparations begin. Tsukasa's team moves into position. B-Rabbit reports readiness. Ringo confirms systems online and fires the rail cannon. The explosion tears through the castle wall, opening the way for attack. Masato gives the signal. The villagers charge through the breach. Inzaghi panics, ordering his men to shoot them all down. Arrows fly, but they bounce off newly forged shields. Masato smirks. He proudly explains the genius behind the creation. She mixed aluminum extracted from bauxite with magnesium and other metals to create duralumin, the same material used to make modern vehicles because it's light and strong. Arrows rain down from afar, striking soldiers one after another. Elch wields a modern bow and arrows, capable of hitting targets from an unbelievable distance. Inzaghi tries to rally his forces, but Aoi cuts through them like a blade of wind. Winona joins the fight, her movements sharp and precise. She fights not for glory, but for family. Meanwhile, Shinobu guides Tsukasa through secret passages. Her information proves flawless. They are close to Findolf's chambers when a new threat appears. A mage blocks their way, his power unmatched by local standards. He swears to crush the rebels and offer their heads to his lord. Masato keeps the line steady outside. Akatsuki steps forward with trembling confidence. He declares himself a great mage, releasing a series of what he claims to be poisonous smoke. The soldiers retreat in panic, leaving the battlefield. Inzagi wonders why the castle mage hasn't arrived yet, then suddenly realizes something and rushes back into the castle. Shinobu stays behind to fight the Imperial Mage. Her precision and instincts outmatch his attack. Shinobu defeats the mage in an instant with a stun gun. Then Inzagi arrives. Shinobu tells Tsukasa to move ahead, she'll handle the rest. Tsukasa rushes into Findolf's chamber. Tsukasa finds Lirol tied up. Suddenly, the Lord shoots Tsukasa with a gun. The Lord tries to continue his perverted act against Lirol, but is shocked to see Tsukasa still standing. It turns out Tsukasa's armor absorbed the shot. Calm and composed, Tsukasa raises his weapon in response. Tsukasa explains that their revolution is not vengeance but rebirth. They seek a nation where everyone is equal, where leadership belongs to the people. Findolf mocks the idea, claiming the Empire will crush them all. Tsukasa answers that they will take the Emperor's head before that happens. His words mark the moment the new era begins. The shot echoes through the hall. Findolf falls. The revolution is complete. As Tsukasa unties Lirol, she suddenly says something strange. It calls for help, warning that the world is being devoured by an ancient evil. It begs the 7 heroes to save it. Tsukasa realizes it's not Lirol speaking. Before he can respond, the voice fades away. Lirol opens her eyes, weak but alive. Tsukasa reassures her that the battle is over, and the village is safe. She feels guilt, yet happiness for their victory. He tells her there's still much to do, but for now she's safe, and that's enough. Outside, the villagers cheer. Kane tends to the wounded. Winona smiles. Their next goal is recognition as an independent nation. But Tsukasa knows they will need more than weapons or politics. To unite their people and guide their fate, they will need a god. In the town, the people are shocked by the sudden appearance of a strange, giant moving object. When it opens, Aoi and Kane step out, wearing sexy outfits. Then Akatsuki appears. He introduces himself as God Akatsuki, showing his magic by making the town's monument disappear. The crowd stands in awe. Soon after, Masato and Ru arrive, offering mayonnaise as a gift from God Akatsuki. They begin praising Akatsuki as a true god. The crowd erupts in worship as the new belief begins to spread. The 7 Light faith is born. In the village, Winona says how lively business has become. Lirol agrees but quietly feels bad that she still hasn't thanked Tsukasa for saving her. Meanwhile, Akatsuki continues to act as the people's god with Masato and Tsukasa in the back. Tsukasa explains that this was part of their plan, to use faith to unite the region. He says starting a religion is easier for people to understand than politics. And when Tsukasa and the others return to their world, the locals can take over smoothly. They decide to name this new religion the 7 Light Faith. Far away, Shinobu and Elch head into the snowy Ruruk Mountains, determined to gather information on Buckwald. Despite the harsh snow, Shinobu insists they continue. Akatsuki and the others continue spreading the faith day by day, using the gift from God Akatsuki, mayonnaise, to win the hearts of the people. The citizens vow loyalty to Akatsuki and chant the name of their faith, their devotion growing stronger each day. Elsewhere, the mayor panics, realizing Dormant's downfall is near. He plans to flee with his family before dawn, but Tsukasa suddenly appears in his office disguised as a maid. Tsukasa introduces himself as one of Akatsuki's angels. The mayor fears persecution, but Tsukasa assures him that's not their goal. Instead, he offers cooperation. Nobles will keep their roles if they serve under the 7 Light faith and help build a new society. The mayor hesitates, but Tsukasa leaves him with a choice: work together or live in fear and exile. In the morning, the mayor steps forward and declares Dormant will be ruled under the 7 Light faith. The people cheer, soldiers relax, and order returns to the city. At the headquarters, Akatsuki and the others look at a photo of Tsukasa in a maid outfit, teasing him about how good he looks. Even Ringo gets excited watching, and Masato jokes about sending her a copy later. Tsukasa sighs but admits the disguise was worth it if it helped the mission. With Findolf now united, Akatsuki wonders what's next. Tsukasa decides to focus on internal stability and tells everyone to rest at Elm Village. Aoi notes it's been a long time since they were home. Kane requests resources to produce medical supplies, especially antibiotics. Tsukasa agrees and asks her to prepare a list. Then he assigns Aoi to guard Akatsuki during the break, which annoys Akatsuki, but she refuses to leave his side. Tsukasa next turns to Ringo, asking her to build a small power plant to support their growing city. Ringo accepts immediately, and Masato offers full funding, confident in their finances. Masato asks about Tsukasa's plan for reorganizing the soldiers. Tsukasa reveals his idea, to merge all forces into one unit, the Seven Light Faith Knight Order. He already has someone in mind to lead them. At the guard headquarters, soldiers celebrate their new positions under the faith, happy with the promised pay. Their captain, Bernard, however, announces his resignation. At the bar, Tsukasa meets him in person, recognizing him as the Silver Knight once honored by the Empire. Tsukasa praises his courage and asks him to lead their knights, but Bernard refuses. He believes their rule will only draw the Empire's wrath, turning dormant into a battlefield. He insists he has personal priorities, and that choosing his own path is the democracy Tsukasa himself promotes. Tsukasa respects his choice, but decides to speak with him again later. The next day, Tsukasa visits Bernard at his home. Bernard is surprised but welcomes him. Tsukasa repeats his offer. They need Bernard to lead the new order. Before he can reply, his young daughter, Eri, runs to him, calling him Papa. Bernard gently tells her to play nearby, then opens up about his late wife and how Eri is his only reason for living. He says he can't risk her safety or be sent away to war, calling himself unfit to lead. He claims a man who values his family this much can't be a knight. Tsukasa disagrees, saying that protecting one's family is exactly what makes a knight. He explains that their goal is not blind loyalty but a revolution, to create a free world where everyone can decide their own future. He asks Bernard to join as a companion, not a servant, and to show the people that their lives have meaning. Moved, Bernard accepts, realizing that fighting for his daughter's future aligns with his true purpose. He pledges to lead their knights and help build the world Tsukasa aims for. On his way back, Tsukasa overhears two nobles mocking him but remains calm, knowing that not all nobles will accept change. He decides to keep an eye on them carefully. Meanwhile, Shinobu playfully flirts with a soldier to gather information. She receives news that Findolf has been attacked by a rebel army. The soldier reassures her that they'll be fine, as the Empire has already mobilized powerful forces. He mentions their commander, Duke Gustav, a legendary mage and warrior, known for his loyalty to the Emperor and ruthless perfectionism. Shinobu is impressed by his reputation. Later, Shinobu meets with Elch and shares what she learned. They both realize how dangerous this man could be. Despite the risk, Shinobu decides they should meet Duke Gustav themselves, leaving Elch stunned. Elsewhere, Inzagi kneels before Duke Gustav, begging for aid to reclaim Findolf. But Gustav only mocks him, disgusted by his weakness. He immediately cuts off Inzagi's head. Cold and merciless, he declares that he will burn every last rebel to the ground. Tsukasa gathers the officials and presents his next reform. He announces the end of the class system and the creation of a new code of laws. With no objections, he moves to the next plan and thanks everyone for their work. The mayor comments on Tsukasa's non-stop effort, saying the angel of the Seven Light Faith never seems to sleep. Tsukasa replies that he can't just order people around while he goes to rest, and says he'll rest once his work is done. At the village, Kane checks on Olga's recovery, amazed at his progress after such a severe injury. Winona jokes that her father missed the big battle. Olga insists he must heal quickly to join the next fight. Kane warns him again to rest, sighing at his stubbornness. Then, Rue appears with a tired look on her face. After recharging her energy, Rue explains that Masato told her to memorize the multiplication table. Winona and Olga say they can't do multiplication and can still live just fine without it. Still, she struggles, saying a merchant must know multiplication, but she just can't memorize it. Kane advises her to keep studying. The basics always matter. Elsewhere, Tsukasa inspects the power site. The new power plant is almost complete. Ringo explains the energy will be stored in high-capacity batteries taken from their miniature reactor. B-Rabbit cheerfully announces the trial run will begin tomorrow. Tsukasa thanks everyone and says this solves their power issue. Ringo immediately moves on to the next project. When Masato asks what comes next, Tsukasa explains that they'll build machines to prepare for the spring harvest and develop firearms for the upcoming battle. Tsukasa wants the people of this world to learn to create firearms on their own. It's their revolution. Masato agrees, saying freedom means nothing if it's just handed to them. Tsukasa also still has one unfinished request for Ringo, to prepare an aerial defense system. Masato's surprised, asking if he expects missiles here. Tsukasa says this world already has its own version of air warfare, with magic and dragons. He recalls a report from Shinobu about a spell called Heaven's Flames, a magic that can destroy entire cities. Shinobu revealed that Duke Gustav once used it, leaving seas of fire behind. Tsukasa concludes that if the Empire attacks, Dormant could face the same threat. Lyral appears. Tsukasa is surprised she hasn't returned to Elm Village. She says she wants to be useful since the war began because of her, and now helping with food distribution. Lyral invites Tsukasa to have lunch together. Tsukasa appreciates the offer, but he has to leave for a meeting. Lyral watches him go, wondering if he dislikes her. Masato reassures her that Tsukasa isn't angry, he just feels guilty. Masato explains that during her kidnapping, Tsukasa was the only one who suggested abandoning her to protect the village. It wasn't cruelty, but the weight of leadership. He always chooses the greater good, even if it means sacrificing those close to him. Masato says Tsukasa is lost in his own guilt, and she should just give him time. At night, Tsukasa reviews a report from one of the officials, thanks him for completing this hard task, and tells him to take tomorrow off. When the man leaves, Tsukasa admits to himself he's been pushing too hard. Lyral comes to see Tsukasa, trying to avoid her. Tsukasa says he's about to rest since tomorrow will be a busy day. But Lyral insists and walks in, saying she wants to repay Tsukasa. Tsukasa says he tried to abandon her, so she doesn't have to go through the trouble of repaying him. Lyral says she already knew that from Masato, and she also understands that abandoning her was the best choice. She had prepared herself for it. Even so, Tsukasa still came to save her. And Lyral says he's a kind person. Tsukasa says he's not a kind person. But Lyral insists that he is. He's done so much for Elm Village and even saved her. Tsukasa also insists he's not a kind person and begins to open up about his past. He speaks about his father, a politician he once admired. But that admiration shattered when he learned his father's power came from corruption. With the help of Shinobu and Masato, he exposed his father's crimes. The scandal led to his father's arrest and execution, and his mother called him insane. Tsukasa realized that in his pursuit of justice, he destroyed his own family. He says he can't forgive his father, but he also understands why his mother hates him. Hearing his confession, Lyral begins to cry, moved by his pain. Tsukasa says that after hearing this, Lyral might end up hating him. Lyral replies that she would never hate him, because Tsukasa did what was right. Tsukasa thanks her, saying her tears made him feel lighter, and says he has one thing to ask of Lyral. Tsukasa asks to rest on Lyral's lap for a while. As he closes his eyes, he thanks Lyral once again. Ringo accidentally sees the two of them from the doorway and quickly rushes back to the lab, pouting once she gets there. At the village bathhouse, Ru keeps practicing multiplication but still struggles. Akatsuki, Aoi, and Kane also get ready to take a bath. Ru complains that the tables make no sense. Akatsuki decides to help, claiming math is his specialty. Ru says she's bad at memorizing, but Aoi tells her that's no excuse. Aoi explains that mastery comes from repetition, the same way they train their skills. Kane agrees, saying she had to memorize entire books in medical school. Ru asks how they managed to push through. Aoi recalls being inspired by an old samurai drama and wanting to use his sword to protect the weak. Ru calls them all amazing, and Aoi says that as long as you have a goal, the rest is just hard work. She recalls her goal and promises to work hard. Akatsuki suggests memorizing by imagining something Ru likes, money, for example. Akatsuki tests her, and Ru answers confidently, solving each question faster. Ru happy, realizing she's finally conquered multiplication. In Kokonono village, Shinobu enjoys the food and drink. Elch tells her she's had too much to drink. The villagers treat them warmly, offering drinks and more food. The air feels cheerful and welcoming. Shinobu praises the clean streets, kind people, saying this place feels almost too peaceful. The villagers thank her and credit their lord, Oslo L. Gustav, and the emperor for their happiness. Everything looks perfect on the surface. Later, Shinobu drunk and falls asleep on the bed. While Elch reassures the worried villagers she'll be fine, the little girls, Melinda, quietly urges Elch to leave the village, but her mother quickly calls her to leave. Elch senses something strange, but doesn't know what. Moments later, Shinobu wakes up completely sober. She reveals that she was only pretending. She never lets her guard down that easily. Something about the village feels off. She explains to Elch that everyone was forcing them to eat and drink, but barely touched the food themselves. Their skin was dry, their eyes yellow, and their faces covered in makeup to hide the signs of hunger. They were starving. Shinobu leads Elch to a hidden area inside the inn. There, she uncovers the truth. The villagers lure travelers in, fill them with food and drink until they can't move, then kill them and steal their money. Kokonono village isn't peaceful at all. It's a place built on fear and survival. They hear a soldier shouting outside. A captain announces the arrival of the Silver Knight, Jean du LeBlanc, here for inspection. Everyone rushes out of their homes, smiling as they welcome her. The villagers chant words of loyalty to the emperor. Their voices were synchronized and lifeless. Jean and her captain notice a stain on Melinda's sleeve. The captain screams that her clothes must always be clean. Jean calmly orders punishment. Melinda's mother steps forward, offering herself instead, saying her daughter's mistake is her own. Jean accuses her of no longer smiling, declaring that everyone under the empire must keep a smile as proof of their gratitude. The captain shouts for her to smile as he prepares the punishment. Elch, horrified, decides he can't just watch. But Shinobu reminds him these same villagers tried to kill them. Elch hesitates, remembering that Melinda tried to warn them earlier. Shinobu sighs and agrees. They will help. The mother can only smile and cry as she watches her child being punished. Shinobu steps out, warning the soldiers to stop. Jean notices her strange weapon and identifies that she's from the Yamato Empire. Shinobu offers herself up in exchange for the child's safety, claiming she'll surrender peacefully if they promise not to hurt anyone else. Shinobu confidently says she can take out half of the soldiers here, including Jean. Jean accepts, intrigued by her bravery. Shinobu is seized and taken away. Earlier, Shinobu calmly explains her plan to Elch. Allowing herself to be captured is the fastest way to reach the heart of the enemy. Now imprisoned, Shinobu observes her surroundings. It's not the Lord's castle, but she can still gather information. Jean enters the cell. She dismisses her guard because he could disturb the interrogation. Meanwhile, Melinda is being treated. The mother thanks them, and Elch says they've already seen the hidden room. The mother is shocked. She tells him how everything began. They were once just a poor village, but since Gustav became the lord, he ordered every village to build fine houses and improve their appearance, all with their own money. When poor harvests struck, people could no longer work the fields, and their money ran out. They ate everything they could until nothing was left. Now, even smiling feels impossible. Elch looks at her with conflicted eyes. He tells her what they've done can't be excused, but he also understands their despair. Back to Shinobu, now freed, Jean reveals her true nature. She's not loyal to Gustav. She belongs to the Azure Brigade, a faction opposing his tyranny. Jean tells Shinobu they share the same enemy, Duke Gustav, the man responsible for the Empire's cruelty. Jean asks for Shinobu's help to save the suffering people. Elsewhere, in a grand hall, Duke Gustav admires a massive gold statue of the Emperor. He calls it a symbol of divine glory. He orders 4 more statues to be built. But his attendant points out that even a single one is already a heavy burden on the people. He doesn't care, saying that the only way lowly peasants can show loyalty is with their lives. Then, his mood darkens upon hearing reports that the rebellion in Findolf still hasn't been crushed. Gustav furious. He slams his head in frustration, curses himself for letting those rebel pests set foot on this sacred land for so long. He rushes to grab his ultimate weapon. In Dormant, Lirol receives a warning from a mysterious voice that danger is approaching. With rage, Gustav fires his weapon toward Dormant. Tsukasa receives a warning on his phone and immediately calls Ringo. Ringo reports that a fast-moving object is flying toward them from Gustav's territory. Tsukasa suspects it's the Heaven's Flame and orders Ringo to launch a missile to destroy it. Although it didn't work, Ringo reports that the direction has slightly changed. Tsukasa suspects that it's not a magic spell, but a kind of fire weapon capable of burning entire cities. Tsukasa orders Ringo to fire another missile to redirect it toward the sea, minimizing the damage. Following the instructions, Ringo fires the missiles one by one, until the last one is dodged by the spear, which then flies straight toward Dormant. The spear lands in the city, and a giant fire monster, Gustav's manifestation, emerges. He curses the rebels for tainting this sacred land and declares he will wipe them out. The nobles are in a panic as the city falls into chaos. The flames are spreading fast. The people fall into panic, and Akatsuki steps forward, calming the people and commanding order under the banner of faith. He declares that the city has been attacked by the Empire, but assures everyone they won't be abandoned. Tsukasa orders the nobles to stay calm and carry out the evacuation procedures written in the document he had given them. The nobles swiftly organize themselves and do their part. Tsukasa contacts Ringo, checking her safety and giving her a new mission. Elsewhere, the bad nobles find themselves trapped in the fire. They are rescued by Bernard, a rebel who now fights against the Empire. The nobles ask why Bernard, someone so loyal, would join the rebels. He tells them this revolution is for a world where everyone can choose how to live and die, regardless of birth. That was the Seven Light Faith's goal. Back at the front lines, Kane observes how the city's wide streets are slowing the fire's spread. Tsukasa confirms this was intentional, designed for emergencies like this. The flames spread slowly, and Gustav grows furious. He unleashes the fire minion, attacking the people and spread the fire further. Tsukasa orders the wounded to be evacuated to the Central Park. While Tsukasa and the others don't know what to do, Lirol rushes in. She explains that the spear is a curse magic formed from a large number of fire spirits, and the only way to stop it is by destroying the spear itself. Tsukasa listens carefully and asks why she knows this. She says the knowledge just appeared in her mind the moment she saw the flames. Tsukasa and the others decide to trust her, because even while frightened and panicked, she still ran to them and delivered this information. Ringo and B-Rabbit arrive on scene. Tsukasa asks if any missiles remain. Ringo confirms there's only one. Tsukasa planned to destroy the weapon with the missile, but B-Rabbit warns that the previous strike failed. Tsukasa explains that it was because the fire spirits had been concentrated inside the spear, making the energy far too strong to break. Now that the fire spirits are spread across the city, they finally have a chance. Still, the intense heat makes targeting nearly impossible, and B-Rabbit can't approach without melting its systems. That's when Aoi steps forward. She volunteers to run alongside the missile and manually guide it to the target. The others are shocked, but Tsukasa trusts her. Aoi readies herself and signals for launch. The missile fires into the burning city, and Aoi sprints beside it at impossible speed. The team watches from the safe as she races through the city. She dodges the fire spirits blocking her path, managing to carry and guide the missile through the city as it closes in on the weapon's location. For the final push, she unleashes her sword technique to protect the missile from Gustav's hand. The missile successfully hits the spear, creating a massive explosion. The explosion fades, and the fires begin to die. Cheers fill the air as the disaster finally over. Tsukasa confirms the operation's success, and the people of Dormant are saved. Elsewhere, Gustav is heavily injured from the spear's destruction. He grows even more furious at the rebels. In Dormant, Lirol feels relieved as the fire spirits are freed from the curse. Tsukasa thanks her for bravely delivering the information and preventing greater damage. Lirol thinks that all this chaos happened because of her. Tsukasa tells her not to blame herself. The revolution would have happened eventually. The rescue of her was only the trigger. No empire can survive after turning its weapons against its own people. He declares they must see it through to build a future where no one else needs to die for justice. She then reveals something strange. Before the battle, she heard a mysterious voice and suddenly understood magic. She can now hear the voices of spirits. Lirol believes her power lies in that connection and decides to start studying magic to use it for good. Shinobu contacts Tsukasa, shocked and upset that Gustav launched the Heaven's Flame without even informing his troops. Tsukasa worries there might be a second attack. But Shinobu explains that it was a large-scale tactical spell that requires time to gather the fire spirits and use again. Shinobu also asks Tsukasa for an update on the Azure Brigade. Tsukasa says he doesn't yet know their true intentions and asks Shinobu to gather more information, explaining that he cannot decide on cooperating with them for now. Masato arrives and reports that the city's repairs won't take long since they were already anticipated. He asks what the next plan is, and then Bernard shows up with the rifle troops. Tsukasa plans to strike first. The furious Gustav orders his forces to immediately gather and march toward Findolf. He demands that the entire army cross the frozen Ruruk Mountains at once if they don't want to be killed along with the rebels. In another place, Jean and Shinobu receive a report that Gustav will mobilize 10,000 of his troops to Findolf. Jean sees this as the perfect opportunity for the Azure Brigade to strike back. At the mountain, soldiers protest the suicidal march through winter. Even the nobles, Arklide and Buckwald, can't believe Gustav's impatience. They quietly admit he's a brilliant warrior, but a terrible commander. They plan to rest their troops at the Ruruk checkpoint. Suddenly, gunfire echoes through the snow. Bernard's forces have already secured the checkpoint and keep shooting at the soldiers. The soldiers panic as Arklide realizes the area is already lost. He orders a retreat, pretending to fall back in disarray. But this retreat is only a trap, a clever feint meant to lure the pursuers into open ground. Bernard, leading the pursuit, is stunned. The heavy cavalry has already been prepared for battle. They charge at Bernard's men without fear of being hit by gunfire. But land mines have been set up precisely for this. This is all Tsukasa's plan. He had already predicted that the enemy would retreat from the checkpoint and rely on their cavalry. He orders Bernard to move exactly as the enemy expects, making them believe they've gained the upper hand. Bernard smiles as everything unfolds exactly as planned. The cavalry falls, and Arklide orders all troops to retreat to Buckwald. Meanwhile, Gustav gives a speech before his army, promising to crush the rebels completely. But before his march begins, Jean fires a signal arrow, ordering the Azure Brigade to move. The Azure Brigade's banner rises among Gustav's troops. At the same time, Ringo and Beerabbit monitor the nobles Arklide and Buckwald. They watch from afar as the two hide behind their castle walls, just as Tsukasa predicted. They blow up one of the buildings. With a drone, Beerabbit broadcasts an announcement demanding their surrender, ending the fight without further bloodshed. Realizing resistance is useless, the nobles yield, and the mission concludes successfully. Gustav's army has been crushed. Gustav refuses to surrender and begins fighting Shinobu and Jean. Gustav's magic gives them trouble, but they already have a plan. Shinobu attacks him and throws a flashbang, while Jean strikes from behind. Gustav blocks her attacks and strikes back at both of them. Catching him off guard, Jean manages to stab Gustav, and Shinobu follows up by dropping the chandelier on him. But it isn't over. Gustav's blood flows, forming a magic circle that explodes the entire tower. Shinobu and Jean manages to escape the explosion. Later, Shinobu reports back to Tsukasa. The city remains calm. Relief efforts are working. When asked about Gustav, Shinobu admits his body was never found. But it's hard to believe Gustav would die just like that. Still, the Azure Brigade is spreading the story of their triumph and claiming that Gustav has already died. Elsewhere, Arklide and Buckwald discusses their new alliance with Tsukasa's group. He admits there's no other choice. Their technology, the rifled guns, the endless gunpowder, even the food, surpasses the Empire's by generations. To him, it's as if they've allied with gods from another world. Meanwhile, the girls enjoy the aroma massage and chat. Liril has already begun her magic training with the Imperial Mage. Ringo, feeling insecure about herself, is quickly comforted by the others. They tease, encourage, and remind her she's just as cute and special as anyone else. Akatsuki is also enjoying the massage. Tsukasa and Masato are enjoying their tea when the girls enter the room in their beautiful outfits. Masato teases Akatsuki, saying he looks beautiful and the outfit suits him well. Akatsuki asks Tsukasa why he has to join the girls. Tsukasa calmly explains that keeping him near Aoi was the safest option. Akatsuki protests, but Tsukasa reminds him that even though they are being welcomed now, this land was enemy territory just days ago. No one knows what danger might be approaching. Tsukasa asks where Liril is. After the massage, she immediately returned to her magic training. Regarding the Azure Brigade, they're still unsure whether the Azure Brigade is an ally or not, and they hope this can be resolved without bloodshed. Kane asks if they can ever get along with the Azure Brigade, but Tsukasa firmly says it's impossible. Akatsuki mentions the new brigade leader seems decent, but Tsukasa reveals that man has already lied to his face. He explains that when asked about the location of the golden statue, the man claimed not to know, though it's likely in his hands. His expression alone gave it away. They suspect the Azure Brigade intends to keep the statue for themselves. Akatsuki questions why Tsukasa still offered to fund the rebuilding if he knew. Tsukasa explains his plan. If Gustav is still alive, he'll come for the statue, so it's better to keep it away for now. And if they accuse the brigade now, no one will believe them, since public opinion favors the brigade. They must first win the people's hearts through rebuilding, then expose the truth later. Money can always be reclaimed, but trust cannot. Tsukasa begins giving new orders, but Kane interrupts. She orders both Tsukasa and Ringo to rest for 5 days, warning that exhaustion will soon make them sick. She predicts that they'll get sick within 5 to 7 days and will need about 10 days to recover. Tsukasa agrees, since it's an order from the medical angel. The others tell them to take it easy and rest, since they have a few days off. Tsukasa invites Ringo to take a tour around the city. Later, B-Rabbit teases her about having a date with Tsukasa. Ringo has never been on a date before and worries that Tsukasa might get bored with her tomorrow. B-Rabbit encourages her not to lose to Lirol. Stealing herself, Ringo heads out to look for advice. She meets Aoi and asks how to approach, and maybe win over, the opposite gender. With her many experiences dealing with men, Aoi suggests having a sparring session, and during it, she recommends aiming for the groin and grabbing his weak point. With that, you can bring down even the toughest opponent, she says. Ringo can only give a dry smile and thank her. Next, during her medical checkup, Ringo asks Kane. She tells her own version of advice. Start by looking at the scenery or having dinner to grow closer, and when you're close enough, use this sleep potion on him and drag him to a secluded place. Then, take off all his clothes and just put all your biology lessons into practice. Ringo can only blush and thank her. Ringo is still confused. Shinobu shows up and offers her help. She says that love is a hunt, and promises to teach Ringo to become a love hunter using her kunoichi's secret techniques. Shinobu's first lesson: arrive early but make the man wait. Ringo remembers this and declares that today she is the love hunter. But when Tsukasa finds her and approaches, she turns red. Because the two of them stand out too much as angels, Tsukasa suggests that they change and disguise themselves first. After changing their outfit, Ringo is captivated by Tsukasa's look and compliments him. Tsukasa returns the compliment, telling her she looks cute. They continue their date. Even though they're still attracting attention, Ringo tries to follow the next step, holding hands. But since doing it directly feels too difficult, Shinobu tells her to pretend to slip, so he'll be the one to hold her hand first. Ringo puts the plan into action and ends up being caught by Tsukasa. But because she overthinks everything, they've already arrived at the restaurant before she realizes it. The next steps, the indirect kiss. Ringo sits beside him, places her drink close to Tsukasa's and accidentally picks up his glass instead. That's the plan. But when Ringo tries to reach for his drink, Tsukasa gets to her first and ends up drinking from her glass instead. Ringo explodes in embarrassment and passes out. In the flashback, Ringo is revealed to be a child prodigy created through her mother's genetic engineering project. Even as a child, she could already solve advanced scientific formulas. She won the annual science award 3 years in a row, making her mother proud. One day, Ringo completed her own science project and even finished her mother's. Instead of praising her, her mother snapped, calling Ringo a manufactured product. Ringo cried and promised she would do better, but her mother had already made up her mind. She said she was done with Ringo and was leaving the house, admitting she should have never given birth to a monster like her. Ringo grew up with emptiness. Then, she meets Tsukasa. Tsukasa came asking Ringo to fix the pocket watch his father had given him. Ringo reluctantly agreed. The next day, Tsukasa kept bringing broken items for Ringo to fix. Little by little, Ringo regained her joy, and she eventually began turning down more repairs so she could focus on her own creations. Tsukasa was happy to hear that. On the way home, Ringo sees Tsukasa talking with an electronics shop owner. She overhears him apologizing for not being able to bring in any more broken items and saying that she's a very talented girl. Ringo realizes that Tsukasa did all of this for her, and she begins to fall in love. Ringo wakes up to find she's been resting on Tsukasa's lap. She says that she just saw a very beautiful dream. She no longer cares about the date itself. She's already met the person she loves, and simply being close to him is enough for her. She asks Tsukasa to take a photo together. She had a lot of fun today, and thanks Tsukasa. Tsukasa also thanks her for the day. He then tells her there's something only she can do, something important waiting ahead. Ringo returns to the lab, fully prepared for their biggest project. The project is already in motion, and Tsukasa checks in on Shinobu. Shinobu reports from Uranus Castle, the Azure Brigade's base. Their leader, Conrad, has just departed for the imperial capital to request to rejoin the Empire. Tsukasa tells Shinobu to pull back before their plan sets in motion. However, Shinobu decides to stay a little longer for something. In the medical room, Akatsuki and Aoi visit the patients. It appears that an epidemic is spreading, infecting wounds and causing death. Kane identifies it as septicemia. The mother begs for her daughter's life, but their supply of holy water, an antibiotic, has run out. She then turns to Akatsuki, the god, and begs him to save her daughter's life. The head of the medical guild, Cerentius, steps forward, offering his own medicine to save the girl. But he mocks the Seven Light Faith for banning his so-called cure, opium. He tells the desperate mother to blame the faith for her suffering. Akatsuki steps forward, refusing to let them suffer. He declares that his angel, Kane, will heal everyone. Kaina appears, confident. When Cerentius mocks her for lacking holy water, she reveals a plan to make new medicine from an unexpected source, coal. Cerentius laughs and proposes a wager. If her creation fails, she must lift the ban on their drug. Kane accepts without hesitation. She begins the process, using magic and science together. With Lirol's help, she breaks down the coal, separating dark liquids and vapors into different parts. Each step is dangerous, steam that could suffocate, acids that could melt flesh, but Kane guides her through with precision. Finally, the experiment ends with a fine white powder. Kane announces it as the world's first synthetic antimicrobial, the magic bullet, sulfonamide. They administer the new medicine to the patients, and soon, the little girl wakes and calls out to her mother, proving the cure works. The mother thanks Kane for saving her daughter's life. Kane notices someone peeking in. Elsewhere, Cerentius receives word that all the patients have recovered, and that Kane truly managed to create medicine from a rock. Cerentius orders them to ruin the faith's reputation by threatening Lirol and forcing her to turn the new medicine into poison. But before they act, Kane appears and attacks them. Cerentius regains consciousness but can't move. Kane tells him that she came to persuade him. She explains that a person's personality can be changed by messing with what's inside their head. Crying, he calls her a monster. Kane laughs and admits that maybe monster suits her better than angel. She says she hates God, thinking that if he had created humans with healthy minds and bodies, no one would suffer. She finds it unforgivable that despite his greatness, he created beings weak and full of flaws. She wants to correct this, granting these weak bodies eternal life and transforming all who harbor evil thoughts into perfection. With that, she aims to create a world without flaws or imperfection. In the morning, Cerentius joins in welcoming the patients going home with a big smile. The male nurse is surprised, and Kane asks to get along with him, saying he's a very good boy now. Far away in the imperial capital, Conrad meets General Neuro. He praises the Azure Brigade for crushing the weak and calls it the Empire's true way, survival of the fittest. However, he condemns their current alliance with the Seven Light Faith. If they want to rejoin the Empire, they must destroy the faith completely. He provides them with assistance through his adjutant Tanganica, who possesses powers equal to or even greater than Gustav's, along with 10,000 troops. Conrad agrees, swearing his full loyalty to the Empire once again. In the lab, Ringo reports that the ultimate weapon is complete. She questions whether it's right to bring something so dangerous into this world. Tsukasa explains that a nation can be born from nothing, like a child claiming a secret base as their own country. But when adults destroy it, the country collapses as well. Creating a nation is easy, but protecting it requires power. Elsewhere, Jean reflects on her fallen former leader, Count Blumhardt, and vows to reshape the Empire into a land where people can live with dignity. Then her comrade, a gold knight, arrives and carries out the order to kill Jean. Attacked from all sides, she is captured. The Gold Knight reveals that this situation is similar to when he killed Bloomheart. Jean is shocked and furious, but she can do nothing. At the last moment, Shinobu appears and saves Jean. She greets Jean and explains that the Azure Brigade has decided to rejoin the Empire and will fight the Seven Light Faith. They begin to fight him. With 2 against 1, he can do nothing and is defeated. After the battle, Shinobu wants to show something to Jean. In the castle's underground, Jean discovers that the missing golden statue is in Conrad's hands. Something that should have been used to help the people was deliberately hidden. Jean cries, realizing that the Azure Brigade, originally formed by Count Bloomheart to fight injustice, has become like this. Shinobu tells her that although the Azure Brigade has changed, its ideals still live on in Jean's heart and invites her to join the Seven Light Faith. Hearing someone approaching, they quickly hide. Conrad, along with Tanganyika, sees the destroyed golden statue. Conrad says that no merchant could have turned a statue this large into coins, especially one shaped like the Emperor. Tanganyika becomes angry at Conrad for destroying the Emperor's statue. Hearing this, Conrad realizes the truth, and Tanganyika reveals himself as Gustav. He says that as long as there are intruders stepping into the Empire, he cannot die just like that, and with Neuro's secret art, he has managed to survive. Gustav notices Shinobu and Jean together and immediately attacks them. He strikes everything in Uranus Castle. Shinobu and Jean manage to escape and report that Gustav is still alive, and even stronger. Shinobu then tells Jean to hurry and get away from here. The castle is engulfed in flames, and with his new power, Gustav declares he will annihilate all the rebels completely. Then the missile hits, and a huge explosion occurs. Jean watches Gustav's power in disbelief, but Shinobu explains that this explosion isn't Gustav's. It's from the Seven Light Faith, fired from dormant. The Empire isn't the only one capable of mass destruction. They too possess God's Thunderbolt, a weapon that can wipe entire regions from existence. Lirol and the others witness the sky change color. Masato says that it's the signal for the new era. Ringo confirms a direct hit, and Tsukasa declares the operation a success. The Seven Light Faith has completed the foundation for their nation. Tsukasa explains that the world's tactical magic, once used to burn dormant, posed a threat that couldn't be ignored. To ensure peace, they had to prove equal or greater power. Diplomacy, he says, only exists between equals. The demonstration serves as both a warning and a declaration. They now possess the strength to shape the future. Though burdened by guilt, Tsukasa believes this act will become a bridge toward happiness for all. Ringo comforts Tsukasa, telling him not to feel too burdened, because she knows he's doing all this for the happiness of others. Next day, the people gather under the command of Akatsuki, who will announce a divine message through his angel. Tsukasa steps forward before the massive crowd, addressing the citizens who once lived under imperial rule. He announces that the Empire attacked the Azure Brigade a few days ago, and the Seven Light Faith has already delivered divine retribution, annihilating the Empire's forces. He reveals that the Azure Brigade has agreed to surrender control of Gustav's lands, and that the Seven Light Faith now governs the northern territories, Findolf, Buckwald, Arklide, and Gustav. But Tsukasa's goal is not domination. Instead, he announces the birth of a new nation built on equality, a republic where all citizens share ownership and responsibility. He calls upon the people to rise, to reject the tyranny of monarchs and nobles who once ruled unchecked. The crowd answers his call, pledging to defend their freedom and dignity. With their affirmation, Tsukasa proclaims the establishment of a new state, the Elm Republic. Suddenly, a fire erupts as Gustav, still surviving the explosion, stands before them in rage. Using the neuro-secret art, the gem on his chest transforms him into a monstrous form. Aoi and Shinobu advance, while Lirol senses the evil aura from Gustav's chest gem and instructs them to target it. Hearing this, they immediately strike him. Aoi successfully hits the gem, but both are thrown back by Gustav's flames. Gustav charges at Tsukasa, who prepares a gun and fires. Tsukasa's final shot hits the gem just before Gustav reaches him. In his final moments, Gustav confronts Tsukasa, calling him an imposter. He warns Tsukasa not to be arrogant, saying he is just a common man, not a ruler capable of saving anyone. Gustav tells Tsukasa that one day he will meet someone truly chosen by heaven to rule. Then Gustav vanishes into oblivion. Elsewhere, Lady Kaguya senses the shift in the world. She remarks that a new dawn has come, as Hibari and Shura stand by her side. Nuro sees the remains of the Uranus Castle explosion and declares that the Seven-Light Faith is an obstacle. Tsukasa awake from a nightmare. Gustav's final words still echoing in his mind. He admits to himself that Gustav was right. He is an imposter, just a common man. Unlike the other prodigies who can do things only they are capable of, Tsukasa is merely doing what any ordinary person could do: politics. The same way anyone else does it. He recalls Gustav's words about a man chosen by heaven, and wonders if that person might be the emperor himself. Tsukasa begins to doubt whether someone as ordinary as him could ever hope to defeat someone like that. Tsukasa and the others are going to have a party. B-Rabbit proudly shows him Ringo's new invention, biodegradable containers and homemade mayonnaise. Tsukasa praises the innovation, impressed by Ringo's craftsmanship. Surrounded by his friends, he reflects quietly. Despite not being a prodigy or superhuman like the others, he draws strength from the bonds they share. With renewed resolve, he announces the Elm Republic's next goal: